Welcome to the Health Angle Podcast with Dr. Mike Headlee and Dr. Gordon Fimreite, where we'll be exploring different angles of health to achieve the best version of yourself. Now, here's your hosts, Dr. Mike and Dr. Gordon.
Welcome, everyone. I am Dr. Mike Headlee, and with me is Dr. Gordon Fimreite. Welcome, Gordy.
Hey, Mike, and welcome, viewers. Please subscribe. Please like our content. We're getting more and more videos out there, Mike, and I think there's enough content for everybody to enjoy whatever specialty they'd like to learn about health. So what's today's subject, Dr. Mike?
Well, we're going to turn the camera and the focus and the spotlight on you and talk about 15 steps to healthy living in your book, Dr. Gordy. So with that, let's kick it off and tell our listeners what inspired you and why did you decide to write a book?
Well, I think you and I, Mike, we've been sitting in a lot of seminars through our career, and we went to a lot of different coursework, and our professors and lecturers that we've seen actually wrote books. So I think in the back of my mind, I'm like, I can do that. And I think I've always had a passion for health and healing and wellness. And I think with that in the back of my mind, I kind of always wanted to write something. And my background was in communication. So really interesting. Whenever I read a really cool article or something on health that I thought, wow, I like that, I would stuff it away in a file, a digital file. So on my computer, I had files of all kinds of health information. So eventually what I did, I decided, you know what? I think it's time to do something with this. So I organized it all and I put it in those files and I try to make it into chapters. And then I'm thinking, well, it doesn't quite fit with chapters. So why don't I call it 15 steps to healthy living? And basically the steps are basically the chapters. So I have 15 different areas of health that people can work on and improve their health. So it might start with what kind of mindset do I start? You know, the first thing in the book starts with, what should my mindset be? I think a lot of people, when they get into this wellness aspect, they just dive into it and they do too much, too fast, too quickly, and they ended up quitting. So my philosophy is, why not try little habits? I think both you and I, Mike, we try stuff. We make it into like kind of a habit. And then ultimately it becomes a lifestyle where you really change your life and you look for more and more things to improve your health. So I think my inspiration was that. But in actuality, my grandmother, I talk about her at the beginning of my book. And I think she was a good inspiration because she lived up to be 105, pretty healthy lifestyle. And I remember sitting down with her at age 102, and I wanted to find out what her mindset was, how she approached life. And it was fascinating, Dr. Mike. I mean, she was living by herself up till about 95. And then she thought, well, I think I'll move into an assisted nursing home so I can be around other people. And then about a year later or less than that, she said, I'm out of there. She didn't want to be around all the old people. So she moved into her own apartment again until she was about 102. She lived to be 105. So later on in her golden years, I decided, well, let me sit down and really find out what her mindset was. And when I sat down and talked to her, I was fascinated with one line that she said. She goes, just as important as my diet, I eat healthy foods and I keep my mind and my body active. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot right in that sentence. And then so she, I asked her more detail, like, what did you do exactly? And we went through her growing up on the farm, and she consumed natural foods that included raw, unpasteurized milk and butter and cream. And we know now that animal fats are actually good for you. There was a time when they said, animal fats are not good for you. Stay away from it. It clogs up the arteries and all that stuff. But if you have a healthy lifestyle and you exercise and you eat the right foods, animal fats are actually healthy for you. And then she was a little bit lactose intolerant, meaning that she had a difficulty with digesting like the milk sugars. And therefore she restricted her cheese and dairy so she didn't have too much. And we know now with processing, those foods aren't always the healthiest on the shelf. So she consumed unpasteurized foods versus pasteurized. And for our audience who doesn't know, pasteurized foods, what that is they basically, for example, milk, they heat it up so high with the goal to kill the unwanted bacteria. But in the process, it also kills the beneficial bacteria called probiotics, which we need in our body. It lines our guts. And then we also, the pasteurization also damages the enzymes which are needed for digestion. And there's also a ton of vitamins and minerals that are in the milk. And if you pasteurize it, you also damage those as well. And so growing up, she was raised with basically fields that were untainted with chemicals. And so she had fresh fruits and vegetables such as carrots and cucumbers and peppers, parsley, tomatoes, and all different kinds of lettuce, apples, pears, blueberries, along with canned goods. So pretty healthy lifestyle growing up. And then Dr. Mike, there's this thing called traditional rotation method. And I don't think a lot of our viewers, when I talk about traditional rotation method, they probably don't know what this is. But what she did back in her day, this is what they did to avoid tainting the minerals, in other words, depleting the minerals, as well as keeping the soil healthy. And what the traditional rotation is if you grow a certain product, such as tomatoes, on a certain part of the garden, the next year you would switch that out and grow something else, say, for example, broccoli. And then after 7 years, you would give that area in the garden a rest, just kind of like biblical times. And every seventh day, they'd give us a rest as humans. But in basically the crops, they would do the same thing, except on a year basis. And they would do the same thing with the yields for the animals as well. So the fields, they would grow wheat, corn, and barley. And then what would they do? They do that same concept. After a year of growing it, of corn, for example, they'd switch that out the next year to barley, etc. And then after the 7th year, they would give it a break. So that's kind of what they did back in the day. So, and then I asked her, later on, what did you do once all the chemicals and the food preparation, the processing, what did you do? And she goes, well, I switched my breakfast. She ate lactate milk since she was lactose intolerant, 2 eggs. She'd only eat a little bit of the yolk. And then she would eat oatmeal. And then she would try not to exceed too many eggs. So that was her breakfast. For lunch, she had milk, of course, the lactate milk, potatoes, 12-grain bread, fruits, jam, all natural, of course, which included black cherry, blackberry, strawberry, and then she had ground horseradish for flavoring, a wheat germ, whole wheat, shredded wheat, cereal back in the day. I think it was healthier versus now. And then she would also have ruby red grapefruit, and she'd also have puffed rice, bananas, apples, pears, peaches, plums, cherries, oranges, and mandarin oranges. And then for dinner, she would have chicken soup, oatmeal, potatoes, rice, chicken, tuna fish, sparingly, of course, a little bit of salt, broccoli, celery, carrots, cauliflower, lettuce, and rhubarb. And then she would also grind her food because she is missing some teeth. And now we find out that juicing and smoothies is actually good for you because it breaks down the food so your body doesn't have to work as hard to get those nutrients from it. So that's basically my inspiration, was my grandmother's story, Mike.
Yeah, that's very fascinating. Thank you for sharing that, Gordy. And a couple of follow-up questions on that. It sounds like she did eat a ton of fiber, a lot of fruits and vegetables, and a lot of macronutrients in that whole food diet. I didn't hear anything come from a can or a box. So really good. So I'm curious I didn't get her name, so I can give her credit for the quote, just like eating well is so important. Keeping your mind and body active is just as important. What's her name so I can give her credit?
Linda Fimreite is her name.
Okay.
So if someone searches that online, you'll see an article with me as inspiration, and I talk about her story.
Nice.
So,
that's great that you could capture that, and not just from a family perspective, but just to share with all of us and all of our listeners as inspiration and a model of really how to be a centenarian. So awesome. Awesome.
What I find interesting, Mike, is I don't think she was really trying to do all these habits, but they kind of felt natural. And I think back in her time, that, especially if you grew up on a farm, rural Wisconsin, like she did, I think it was just part of the lifestyle. Even I think you and I, as children, had much healthier foods than we do today. But I think she wanted to keep things really consistent. But I mean, she did other things too. She went for walks. That was her form of exercise. She realized also that the vitamin D, just getting natural sunshine exposure on her skin, her face and her arms, made a difference. She enjoyed crossword puzzles and reading, and she kept active with her church, with really fulfilled her purpose in life. And she even said when she went to church, what she would do is she would sit in a different pew. And the reason why she did that, because she would meet new people, and she'd always have a book with her, and she'd hand the book to different people in the congregation wherever she sat. And it was her form of socialization. And as we mature in life, you lose that socialization. And for her, she wanted to keep that up because she realized that was really important. And I think it's really important as we mature, we have those outlets for socialization. That's a big thing. I think we got a taste of that during the pandemic. People that didn't have socialization, that was bad. That was unhealthy. It wasn't good.
Yeah, I agree totally. So it sounds like she could be interviewed. She could have been interviewed for the Blue Zones. She fits right in with those people in the book and on the videos of the Blue Zones. Did looking back on it, did she do most of the 15 steps in your book of healthy living? Did she basically kind of follow that plan in a sense?
Well, I don't know if she did it quite that detailed. But a lot of these steps, how she ate and the foods and, healthy digestion and some of the vitamins she got from her foods, exercising and getting enough sleep, like mindful meditation. I'm not sure if she really knew what that was, but the positive psychology and happiness, going to the church, I think that was one of the things. Visualization, I think she had her own type of mindset to, what she wanted to accomplish. So I think on a smaller level, I think there was a lot of these steps, but I also think that she didn't think too much about it. It was just kind of what they did back in those days. So
sounds like she was just tapped into nature, her innate ability to heal and repair, and what just seemed natural to feed her body and her mind and to communicate and to be a part of groups. And it just seemed natural to her, natural living, if I may say that.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think when you're on a farm, and even if you get out in nature a lot, I think a lot of people learn a lot about the world, nature, health, healing. I think there's a lot to be said about observing nature. And I think she fit right in with the farm. Nature, including animals, their behaviors, how they react to certain circumstances as well. So no doubt about that. And, I want to say to the audience too, I don't care what career you have. It doesn't matter. But I think writing a book is a great thing for people to do if they have the passion. And I think anybody can take their own interest level, put your thoughts on paper, find a creative way to organize it, and then really start to put something out there. And I think they have really wonderful tools for producing books. And I found it a pretty easy process once you get started. You have to do a lot of research. But one of the benefits that I got from writing the book is not only having a book out there, something that I was passionate about, and something that gave me some type of a little bit of notoriety in my own circles, but it also gave me kind of an authority, so to speak, in the health arena. And I think what that also did was it projected my career and helped me with my clinic and my practice. What I did was I had my own link off my website just dedicated to the book. And everything about the book was backlinked to that website. And I remember putting the book out to all these different book awards in all different parts of the country. Some of the book awards that I won for my book that I submitted, Beverly Hills, I had an award as a first place winner under the category of well-being. but I also got some other acknowledgement from the New York Book Festival, an honorable mention, as well as San Francisco. That was also an honorable mention. And then an award finalist with the American Book Fest. And then Reader's Favorite, that was a silver winner. Another award that I wasn't expecting was Book Authority. At one point, I was the 30th top book for the best longevity ebook of all time. Now, I wasn't trying to pursue all this. I just put it out there, but I got the acknowledgement and I backlinked it all to my site, which really helped with the search engine optimization. So I'd encourage people out there that in different careers, put a book, they're self-publishing that can help you through this. And it's really an exciting process.
So I have a few more questions for you, Dr.
Sure.
Gordy. Great. Congratulations on all the awards and for doing that and sharing with that. So that's really exciting, not just to have for your patients and your practice, but to win some awards and be acknowledged for that. So great job with that.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
And any challenges or surprises when you're organizing and writing your book?
I would say that's a great question, Mike, because there was a lot. It's not a smooth process. And I was lucky because I went on to a site called Upworks.com. And that is where there's freelancers basically from all over the world. And I was looking for an editor. So I had a lot of help with an editor going back and forth with each chapter. I think the easiest part was figuring out the book cover, figuring out the title, getting the chapters, calling them steps, and then going through each individual area and getting the details down. So that wasn't very hard. What was really hard was organizing the book into format that is needed for self-publishing. So that was probably the more challenging part. And then the other challenging parts was actually getting your book out there. Once you get it out there, you have to do some degree of marketing. And I remember one of the marketing that I did, which was a phenomenal book. Like I encourage people to write your own book, whatever hobby, habit, or even profession that you have, write your own book. You'll figure it out. But one of the books that I would recommend to read, Mike, it is called, and it's on Amazon, by the way. That book is called How I Sold 80,000 Books. It's book marketing for authors. It's just a phenomenal book. It's by Alinka Rutkowski. So I'd recommend viewers who want to write their book into their hobbies, habits, or even the profession, check that book out and just start writing.
Thanks for that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That will inspire me to get further along the path. So what was your favorite step along the way of your 15 steps?
My favorite step, I don't know if I had one favorite. Obviously, the intro about my grandmother was something that I put a lot of effort, and I really loved that. It's not a very long intro, but I loved writing that. And I think starting the health journey, I think I started this podcast by saying, when people start their journeys, they do too much, too quick, too fast, and they quit. It's too hard. But I think if you have a mindset and you have a goal, I think that's a good way to start. So I'd say that was a really fun chapter for me to do. Healing comes from within. I think we know that there's an innate intelligence and we try to tap into that. And we know that healing comes from within. And we know that because if we cut ourselves or have an injury, the body heals from within. And I think that was a very special chapter for me. I think goal setting as well. I think that's kind of underrated. One of my first books that I read was The Magic of Thinking Big. And that was all about goal setting, visualizing, and just putting things out there, putting intentions out there. And that was also a very fun chapter, Dr. Mike.
Cool. Did you put the quote, consistency is better than intensity in the book?
Yeah, consistency is more important than intensity. Absolutely. That was at one of the beginning of my book. So, and I think that's applicable for every chapter that I wrote on, because every chapter is just kind of like our podcast, Dr. Mike. We pick a different subject and we really explore it. Same thing with my chapters. Each chapter, I have a quote to go into it, but each one is, if you do it consistently, that's more important than the intensity of it all.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. What did your patients think of it when you brought it to the office, and were they inspired and excited that you're an author as well?
Yeah, I think a lot of people were excited to read. Say, I got a lot of compliments from it. Some people didn't know that I wrote it until they saw it on the bookshelf, and then they ask a little bit more about it. So I think a lot of people really enjoyed the book. It's not a hard read. It's just pertinent. I know I have a lot of conversations with patients, and I thought it was kind of fun. Just put it together, make it simple, easy to follow. Each chapter has a ton of information that people can do, active steps. So it's just not 15 steps, but in each chapter, there's a ton of things that people can do to optimize their health potential and become as healthy as they can.
Nice. Did you impact your community by getting speaking engagements and or interviews and other things like that to impact
That's
your
one
footprint?
area, Dr. Mike, that I didn't get a lot of opportunities to actually get out there and speak to live groups. But what I did do is I had like some interviews that I did that were a question and answer, mostly online, as through the form of an article. I actually did an online search on my name and the book, and I was surprised to find a lot of stuff that was out there on the book that I had no idea that was out there. But some of the things that I did do was some article type of interviews. So,
Nice. Cool.
yeah.
What's the number one thing you learned about yourself writing the book, and the number one thing you learned about your health and any changes regarding that?
Number one thing that I learned is that if you put your intentions out there to write a book, you can do it. Just you have to organize it. At least for me, I think the biggest thing was organizing it. And this is going to sound very strange, Mike. When I put the book together, the first thing that I did was I went on the Upworks and I got myself a good graphic designer, and he put together the cover of the book, and I actually had the name of the book and everything about the book. And that was more or less the intentions or the goal, that I wanted to finish this thing. And then from there, I put everything else together. What did I learn about my health? There's a lot of things when you're writing this that you don't realize that you should be doing, and you're not. And that might be some of the foods you eat for digestion. That might be one of the big things. Positive psychology, that comes to mind. And then mindful meditation. I think those are probably the biggest things.
Well, yeah, I mean, it just, you can walk your talk by researching and reading and writing and teaching and publishing. It's like, hey, I got to walk my talk and be a good example of living the 15 steps. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was fun. And Dr. Mike, I can't wait till your book comes out.
Yeah,
I am
I'm
looking
excited.
forward, and I definitely will read that.
So anything you want to leave our listeners with? Anything, any summary or any words of wisdom that you want to share with our listeners about your book or yourself, or, and then for sure where they can get that online? I'm on Amazon right now. You can get it on Amazon. Any other way? Or
Had said earlier that I kind of did an internet inquiry, and I found out that they had all these outlets where my book was, not only Amazon, Barnes and Noble, but there was 20 other outlets, and even Apple Books, Walmart, and it's still available. Google Books, just to name a few. So it's out there everywhere. People can still get the book. I'd say keep it simple as far as your health journey. Write out a plan, put it on paper. What do you want to accomplish? Think about it, and then put a plan together. What is your lunch and snacks and dinner and breakfast, and what are the foods that are going to be consistent with your lifestyle? What kind of exercise are you going to do? Keep it real simple. And then I'm going to go right back to my grandmother's quote: keep the mind and the body active. And I think that's the key right there.
yeah, that is so powerful and simple. And there's examples of your grandmother. She was a living example. She walked her talk. You're a living example of doing 15 steps of healthy living. And I love it. So we always close is I ask, what's our number one takeaway? So our listeners, what can you sit around a dinner table or a lunchroom in a business and share about what you learned with your 15 steps of healthy living? And can you get a book for someone as a gift and dive into that? Maybe a book club, maybe people at an office could each get the book, and then they could support each other as accountability partners to walk through the 15 steps to improve their health, even if you're already healthy. And if you aren't so healthy, just slow and steady. Consistency is more important than intensity, remember, and then just do all the action steps as Dr. Gordy.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike, thanks for having me as a guest today. I know we do a dual podcast, so I appreciate that. We're going to turn the tables on you, so that'll be definitely in a future episode for sure.
Cool. So number one takeaway that you can share with someone in this robust information, and then the one action step that you're going to take based on what Dr. Gordy said today. What's your action step that you can take today? You can write down that you're going to order the book. You can get on Amazon and order the book. You can really focus on keeping your mind and body active. What's that going to look like? What's your goal for the rest of the year? I mean, it's August 1st tomorrow, right? So half the year is already over. So how you going to finish the second half of the year stronger than you started, or is it going to be slow and steady throughout? Or what are you going to do to finish 2024 strong and healthy and well? So what's your number one action step from what we talked about today and what Gordy shared? And so with that, any final motivational, inspirational?
I would say people get out there and get her done. So let's end the podcast here, and we'll see everybody next week for another edition.
Thank you for joining us on the Health Angle Podcast. Please subscribe to our channel and catch us for our next episode.